What's up, everybody? It's Brett Okamoto from ESPN, and I told you a couple weeks ago we were going to take a shot at this gambling segment, UFC gambling segment on ESPN. I mean, this show doesn't even have a name yet, and we've added a new person to it from last week. But we got some good feedback from you guys, and again, we're going to try and do this ahead of every single UFC card, fight nights, pay-per-views, and just taking a look at the fights through the gambling lens. So we got James Krause, a veteran of the UFC. I guess recreational bettor on the side that he does it himself. And then we've got Nick Kalikas, a longtime friend of mine. Nick actually set the odds for offshore books for a number of years. And now he's working over at Circa Sports, so the Circa book over in Las Vegas. And you probably recognize him from the UFC gambling show, the show that the UFC does on its own as well, with Yanni the Greek over there at the UFC. So we've got a pro in both sense of the terms, a pro bettor, a pro from the fighting side. So let's go ahead and jump right into it, guys. I want to get in this main event: Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov. The lines that we're using are from William Hill, and as of this morning, as of the taping on Wednesday, Alistair Overeem is plus 160 underdog. Alexander Volkov is minus 190. Now, it opened at Alexander Volkov minus 175, so just a little bit of movement on Volkov. And the total is, you're basically saying whether or not the fight's going to go the distance. The total is set at 4.5 rounds. The under is juiced to 250, minus 250. And the over, maybe that's what I said. The over is minus 250 and the under is plus 175. So James, we're going to start with you. What we do on this show, we do A picks and B picks, or just leans, So James, tell us if you're laying money on this one, and if you are, if it's an A pick or a B pick.
I personally have not put anything on it yet. I probably will, though. I love Alistair Overeem. I love what he's doing. For me in this fight, I feel like his volume is just a little bit too low for me to pick him against Volkov. Volkov is super long. He doesn't get hit clean very often. Obviously, you can go back and find the Derek Lewis fights of the world, but overall, as a whole, he doesn't get hit clean super often. He's fairly durable, good takedown defense, good grappling, even if he does end up there. And I think he's just going to fill the gaps with volume. For a heavyweight, he's got a pretty high output, to whereas Overeem is a single shot. He doesn't throw a lot of combinations, hard kick, hard punch. And I just think that stylistically, that Volkov matches up very well against Overeem. Now, obviously, you have to look at the resurgence of Overeem and his takedowns and stuff like that. But Volkov has shown in the past that he's able to stop those takedowns. So I would look for him to bank rounds in. And I'm not betting the over or anything like that. I'm staying away from it. I don't have anything on this fight, but if I were to bet, I probably will end up putting money on Volkov just strictly from volume.
Okay, as a B pick then, James, it seems like.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we get to Nick, I mean, the only hesitancy I would have is you said that Volkov has shown good takedown defense. Well, he did fight Curtis Blades, who is a teammate of Alistair Overeem. Yeah. Now, I know that the wrestling of Blades and Overeem very, very different, but Overeem has shown more of a tendency to grapple, especially late in his career. So it doesn't seem like that's something that concerns you, though, huh? Like, what are you basing your good takedown defense from Volkov on?
Yeah. So the style of takedown, Curtis Blades is more of a folk style wrestler. He comes from a collegiate background, whereas Alistair Overeem, his takedowns are coming from the clinch, whereas Volkov is very, very versed in the clinch. He understands the clinch very well. He can strike well from the clinch. You don't see Overeem taking doubles and singles, right? That's usually off the cage from body lock positions. And I feel like it's going to be difficult to get on somebody long and lanky like Volkov, towards Blades. He will take that open mat, double leg, single leg, and get you down from a folk style type of wrestling. So I think it's the type of wrestling that we're talking about here that I feel like Volkov is very, very versed. And I'm not saying Overeem won't get him down, but I don't think he's not going to be a fish out of water on the ground. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Nick? What do you think about this one?
I mean, I think James nailed it. I think it is good stylistical matchup for Volkov in this spot. I don't like the price right now. I think it's a little bit too high for my liking, to be honest with you. So it's making me hesitate, because I do think at this point of his career, he's more technical. I think he does outpoint Overeem on the feet. I think he could possibly finish Overeem. We've seen Overeem historically, he's been knocked out a bunch throughout his career. He's getting older. Somehow, some way, him and Andrei Arlovski, another one of these guys, their chins are getting better as they age. I don't understand it. I'm not sure what's going on with these guys, but credit to those guys for putting in the work and just staying in there and the toughness that they show. But I do think Volkov, he's going to probably outpoint him on the feet. What you said, Brett, I mean, the takedown ability from Blades, I think it actually improved Volkov's game because he had to get back up. He went through a grueling fight. I think that's only going to make his takedown defense a little bit better. But that is also a wild card factor you have to consider, is that Overeem probably will start looking for the takedowns. I mean, he's been doing that more often. Very smart, right? He needs to win this fight. I mean, this is a big fight for both guys. So I do expect Overeem to mix things up. But I think the conditioning and the striking and the amount of action and overall output that Volkov puts is going to be the difference here. And I think he wins the fight.
James, I promise I'm going to really try hard not to ask you this every single week, but what about the smaller cage? Does that favor Overeem a little bit, knowing that he wants to get to crowd him?
Yeah. I mean, I think a little bit. Man, Volkov he's a good mover. He's not just stationary. He has good feet too. And once again, to me, it's not necessarily the wrestling; it's the style of wrestling that I feel like will be the difference here. I don't think he's going to be able just to move Volkov in the clinch like he does a lot of these guys. If we're talking open mat doubles and single legs to where Volkov doesn't have the fence to get back up, and as Nick said, it actually made Volkov better because he had to work back up, and he's good. I mean, he's good everywhere. Volkov is not a fish out of water anywhere. I just think the style of Overeem's wrestling, Volkov is going to have an answer for that. He's very versed in the clinch. He understands the clinch very well. It's the open mat collegiate style of wrestling that I think will give him the problem, the style of wrestling that Blades brings, but not Overeem. Overeem is more of a clinch, body lock type guy, and I think Volkov will have answers for that.
Okay, so it sounds like to me both of you guys have a lean on Volkov. James, maybe a B play that you end up on Volkov, but nothing too strong on the main event, which doesn't surprise me, honestly. I think Overeem's just tough to Overeem fights are tough to bet for me, just because, I mean, the guy is like, he's changed his style later in his career. I feel like he's being very efficient, being somewhat conservative. He still has that one punch knockout power though. So like, I would like to maybe take the over of this fight amazingly, but it's like heavyweight fight. I don't really want to take the over of any of those.
Well, he's inconsistent to me. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean like he changes his style so often. Like one fight he's chinny, the next fight he's got a granite chin. Yeah. And then one fight he's wrestling, the next fight he's striking. And it's like, I don't know which guy I'm going to get this fight. So I kind of just, I don't like to play on him. And when I say inconsistent, I don't mean that, badly. I just mean like he's changed and evolved and changed and evolved. Yeah. Just, I don't know which Overeem we're going to get this fight. So for that, I kind of just back up on it.
Yep. Let's go to the co-main event, which, man, I want to personally, it interests me maybe more than the main event. You got Cory Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar. Sandhagen is a minus 420 betting favorite as of right now on William Hill. Frankie Edgar plus 330. The opening line, it hasn't moved too much. Opening line was Sandhagen minus 400, so he's up to minus 420 now. Total on this, set at 2.5 rounds. The over, again, juiced minus 200 if you're going to take the over, the fight basically to go the distance. And if you take the under, it's going to be plus 150. Frankie Edgar, 39. Cory Sandhagen, 28. James, what do you think about the co-main event?
I think I love both these guys. I think Sandhagen is way overpriced in this fight. I mean, look at Frankie's fight with Munoz, and I don't believe he won that fight, but he showed that he can hang right there. And then you go back and you watch Sandhagen fight with Aljo, and man, Frankie can wrestle. To me, it reminds me. I'm getting flashbacks of Frankie's fight with Yair Rodriguez. You know what I mean? And I know they're different styles of strikers, but man, like, dude, people are counting Frankie out, and I'm not saying that he's going to win this fight, but to me, minus 400 for Sandhagen is insane. I do think Sandhagen is going to win the fight, but there's no way I'm paying that price for it. I do like the over 2.5 rounds in this one, though. I do think Frankie's going to mix it in, make things interesting. But I can't lay that kind of money on Sandhagen to win.
Real quick as an aside, it's funny that you bring up Yair because I asked Frankie, I talked to him this week, if he's seen anything like Cory before, because the guy's been around forever. So it's like, oh, you've seen everything. Of
course.
But like,
yeah.
I've seen someone like Cory, because Cory is pretty unorthodox and unique. And he was like, well, I want to say that I kind of saw something similar when I fought Yair. And as we probably remember, Frankie dominated that fight. Not saying that that's going to happen again, but that's what Frankie told me, is that's a style that it reminded him of.
But man, I think he showed with his fight with Aljo that like he has some problems with the wrestling and the grappling, and Frankie can wrestle, man. Frankie can wrestle. He blends better than anyone. And I know Father Time's catching up with him, and I get all that. But for me, it's not about – in this fight, I can't look at who's winning and losing. It's just I can't pay that price for Sandhagen to win. I do think he's going to win. I just can't pay that price for it.
Yep. Nick, what do you think about the line here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we have to keep it high. If not, everybody's going to pile on Sandhagen, right? I mean, that's why the line is what it is. It's definitely overpriced, but I do think he's going to win this fight. Now, what you said, James, is 100% true. I mean, the wrestling is probably going to be the biggest factor. And Frankie's going to go for these takedowns and try to implement that game plan and that style that he did against Yair. The difference is, for me, Yair doesn't get off his back and he doesn't scramble quite as much. I mean, I think Sandhagen is so good. He's hard to keep down. I know Aljo was able to take his back and submit him, but I don't think Frankie's that type of grappler. I mean, he has great jiu-jitsu.
I agree. 100% agree.
But I think Aljo's kind of more prone to go for that right away once he gets you down, right? So I do believe that Sandhagen is going to get off his back, even if he gets taken down. And then on the feet, man, I mean, Frankie's been a great striker. I mean, historically, his boxing, his timing, his accuracy, underrated power. But Sandhagen is going to torch him on the feet, I think, at this point. He's just too diverse. I mean, his striking's so unorthodox but technical, and he's got knockout power to go along with it. So I think this fight, Frankie has his moments in it, but overall, Sandhagen's probably going to possibly get the finish along the way. So I have much respect for Frankie, though. I just don't think it's a good fight for him.
Nick, you said something interesting there when you said that the book has to keep the line there, otherwise they're just going to get hammered on Sandhagen. Let me ask you, in those situations where the book is almost handicapped and they're saying like we have to keep the line at a certain price, otherwise we know that just all the money's going to come in on the favorite. When do you pull the trigger? How do you decide that, hey, the book is in a position where they can't move? Like, when do you want to take the underdog in those situations?
Well, I mean, we've already gotten some decent sharp action coming in on Frankie Edgar. We have to respect it. So we did drop our price a little bit. So, but again, the parlay action, everybody's going to be, I mean, he's going to be one of the biggest parlay keys of the weekend. I mean, we have the Super Bowl coming in as well. So just imagine the Sandhagen and Chiefs parlays that we're going to get. It's going to be insane. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and that aspect, we're kind of trying to balance it out. Honestly, I don't want to go into this fight like with a huge risk either side, because like I said, I respect Frankie. He can pull this off. I mean, he's probably getting disrespected with the betting line. I understand it, but at the same time, I don't want to get burned if Sandhagen wins, which he should at this point. And it's kind of a setup fight for him, get that marquee win under his belt.
Yeah.
I think it's important for everybody listening to know that like the sportsbook's job is to not predict winning and losing. It's to minimize risk. Right. So like for me, if this was at minus 300, I would be like all over it. Right. Cause it's a much different line. But what Nick is saying is like, hey, we got to bump this up just to keep everybody away. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's a bad bet here. Right. Like, I mean, if you play on Frankie's side, I mean, you got a shot to win, but if you lay the juice on saying he's probably gonna win too. So I'm staying. For me, it's either one or the other. Or I'm out on it. I may throw something small on Sandhagen, and what I would do on this is I would parlay Sandhagen in with another big favorite to try to get my money back out of it, which is when we get into best picks, given the card, is kind of what I'm going to be leaning towards.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and get into those because main, co-main, there were some leans. Didn't sound like it was anything too confident from you guys. So what are you confident in this weekend? James, go ahead and give yours first.
And everything that I'm confident in is expensive. And I typically try to stay away from stuff like this, but I'm just going to go ahead and start talking. And Nick is probably going to roll his eyes a little bit because everything I have is expensive, but you can mix these guys in on parlays to get your value out, which is what we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. I like Zalal. Zalal's shown that he can. I've been watching this kid for a long time. He can strike with anybody. The problem he has is good wrestlers that hold him on the fence. Sung Woo Choi is not that guy. He's a striker. I feel like Zalal is going to mix it in, blend. I do feel at minus 250. I'm putting that down myself. I like Cody Stamann, Askar taking a short notice fight against a very, very solidified fighter. You know what I mean? Like Stamann, he's minus 400, but you throw him in, mix with a parlay, get your money back out, get your value back out. I like Voilev over Martin Day. Again, another short notice fight. A tough guy against a guy that's kind of been inconsistent in the division. And then last one, I'm kind of on the fence about this one, but it's short notice, so I like it too. Devonta Smith. I love Devonta. He's a slanger. The thing that kind of makes me back up a little bit is Justin James has power. Both these guys have power. And I could see the under on this one. I like Devonta in this fight because it's also short notice, but James is not a guy to sleep on. So any of those four, I feel like you could kind of mix and match and throw in with some parlays to get your value back out of it. if you're looking for something a little bit closer, I like Fahea, and I like the over 2.5 in that fight. But other than that, the Procopio and McCann over 2.5, that's expensive too. Everything that I really love is expensive, so I like to dabble in those. But the one that really is kind of closer to even would be Fahea over Dariush.
Okay. All right. Nick, your best bets for the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, to start off, this is not the easiest card, to be honest with you. I think the lines are pretty much appropriately set right now. So there's not a lot of value to be had, which, we're not happy with, obviously, because you want to look for those off prices, because price is king. I mean, that's where you find the value, and that's where you make your wagers. But I agree. I do have a couple small plays. Fajeda, I think, over Dariush. A lot of people are going to say, you're crazy. Dariush beat him the first time. I just see the growth in Fajeda, and he's getting this rematch. This is the perfect opportunity to get that win back and then move up to the next level. So I think Fajeda, stylistically, I mean, he pushes a higher pace. I think his conditioning is a little bit better. So hopefully he can pull off the W this time. And around minus 120 or so, I think it's worth a small stab. And then Procopio, you mentioned it. I think McCann and Procopio is going to be a crazy good fight. It's going to be really close. It probably does hit the scorecards. If it does hit the scorecards, I think it's going to be a coin flip type of fight. So the value, I think, is at plus 135-ish or plus 130, whatever you can get out there on Procopio, because I think if you're getting a pick 'em, a coin flip type of fight, and you're getting plus 135 on one side, you got to take it. So a small bet on Procopio should be a competitive fight. And then I agree with you, James, on I'm going to do a 2-team parlay, a small one. Valiev minus around 350-ish or so, and then Zalal minus 230, 250-ish around that spot. You're basically getting minus 120, around minus 118, minus 120 if you combine the two together. So I think a small wager with those two probably comes through. So those are kind of my leans and small plays for this weekend. You just got to approach this with caution, because this isn't the ideal card to go crazy on, I think, overall.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough one to really put. Like, I'm looking at it, and there's nothing that's just like, I love this. Or if there is, you got to pay. You got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yep. Marathon, not a sprint. Don't waste your bankroll on just the second episode of this show that has no name, right? So hopefully you guys pick some winners. We'll enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll be back. Next week we're already back to another pay-per-view with Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. So looking forward to hearing what you guys say about those. So we will see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.